Welcome back to the Athlete Hackers podcast. My name is Chris Schrade.
My name is Mark Spellman, and before we get to our award-winning guest today, we'll go over our last guest, Bo Sandoval, the Associate AD for Sports Performance at Texas A&M. If we didn't have a time limit on that episode, I'm pretty sure we'd still be talking.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of information that Bo was giving to us, which was awesome. My main takeaway, and I've taken away this from most of our guests, first and foremost, meet your athletes where they are. And secondly, and this was a big one for me, use the verbiage that they are familiar with. And it really had to deal with how he was working with his golf team down at Texas A&M. And he wanted them to be, he used the word precision as far as how they have to be so precise with their putting. And he used that word as they were working in the weight room. He wanted them to be precise. And I think using the verbiage that the athletes are familiar with their activity and utilizing it in the weight room did one of two things. It gave the athletes a bigger buy-in to what they were doing in the weight room, but it also had a bigger connection for the athlete with Bo. So that was my big takeaway.
Yeah, one of the interesting points of that episode for me was the fact that when he was coaching for the Olympic team, he was in charge of combat sports and acrobatic sports. And, he went on a tangent for a good 10, 15 minutes on how they're similar and how they're different. And that was pretty cool. But you got to listen to the episode if you want that info.
Yeah, we're not giving it all away. It is now my honor and my pleasure to introduce the Assistant Strength and Conditioning Coach, Collegiate Coach of the Year from Clemson University, Ryan Metzger.
Yeah!
Woo! Yeah, let's get some.
When Leanne was on, one thing that I brought up is this is like the Grammys for strength and conditioning, right? And you're basically you're like the runner-up artist of the year. No, not even supporting actress of the year.
Different category.
Different categories. So more like supporting actress of the year or something like that. Either way, you're getting one of those golden statues. That's the equivalent.
I hope so. I mean, I legitimately got a trophy. It's a huge cup. So, I mean, it could be like an Emmy.
Now, first question. Have you had something to drink out of the cup yet?
Funny story. I actually got the cup here in Clemson the day of our athletic department holiday party. And so I was like, do I bring this to the party and drink stuff out of it? Or is that too narcissistic of me and just kind of throwing it in everyone's face?
If it makes this any easier, Mark would have tied that to a chain and worn it around his neck.
That was my thought. I was like, let's put it on a necklace and walk in, just having it out there. And I decided not to. I was conservative, and so I just put it on the shelf in my office.
I would at least put it on the desk so any coach or any athlete that comes in knows who they're dealing with before they open their yap.
Should I just put a shelf by my door so when it's open and closed, it's just there?
Shit, nail it to your door if you can.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
For those that are unfamiliar with you, Ryan, if you could give us your background and how you got down to Clemson, so everybody's familiar with you.
Absolutely. So I'm from Chicago, Illinois, originally. I grew up being a gymnast my whole life, gymnast from age 5 on. I went to the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. I did gymnastics there as well. It's just a small D3 school in the middle of Wisconsin, super cold all the time. It's great. After Wisconsin, Oshkosh, I did an internship at the University of Kentucky. And that was really kind of my first time getting my feet wet in a D1 setting, because I was used to the D3 setting that I was at for Oshkosh. So I interned there for the summer. And during the summer, they asked me if I had any interest in moving to Lexington and kind of feeling this out a little bit more. And I was like, yeah, why not? So I actually ended up interning for that fall and that spring. And I picked up 2 other jobs on top of interning. So I was working for free in the weight room, but I was also serving at a restaurant. I was coaching gymnastics, both of which I'm glad I don't do any longer because coaching athletics was really kind of what I wanted to do. So at the end of that spring, I ended up getting a graduate assistant position with the Olympic sports there. So I went to grad school at Kentucky and got my master's in exercise physiology while also basically being a full-time coach. So by the time that I finished up there, I had 5 teams that were my own. So I had women's soccer, men's swim, diving, women's tennis, women's cheer, and then going to grad school on top of all of it. So it was a lot for a young coach, and it was a great experience. And at the end of that, I ended up transitioning to football only. So I worked football for an entire spring because I finished my grad school about 2.5 years in. So I ended at a weird time. Transitioned to football only. So I did that in the spring and then part of the summer. And then I ended up getting my position at Virginia Commonwealth University as an assistant sports performance coach there in Richmond, Virginia. It was like my first official full-time job. I worked with lacrosse, field hockey, cross country, track. So I had 2 sports that I had like never seen before. So I had to do a lot of quick learning on how to train them, but it was good. And I had an awesome boss there, Tim Contos. He's super great. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but he's like a legend to me.
Not
and then
just you.
Yeah, he's so great. And then I was there for just shy of 4 years. And then the senior position opened up here at Clemson. And I ended up getting the position here. So I transitioned to my position in the summer of 2019. So I currently am the senior assistant here. I work with women's soccer as well as softball, which are like just phenomenal sports to work with. Super talented and great people. And then I also do the internship program here. So I do a lot of our educating and mentoring. I run our social media. I'm picking up all of the budgeting stuff. So like I'm kind of learning the ropes in my position from all angles. So pretty excited.
That's a pretty quick development as far as to where you are now from where you started. Yeah. When you were at Wisconsin Oshkosh, how did you go in? What were you majoring in there, and how did you go? I think I want to do the strength and conditioning thing.
Oh, I love this story. So I've told this before I was talking to someone else about this, but everyone's always like, how did you know what you wanted to do so young? And I went into Wisconsin Oshkosh telling people that I wanted to be an athletic trainer because I knew that I wanted to be right. I knew that I wanted to be involved in athletics in some capacity. I just didn't know that a strength and conditioning coach existed. Like I had no idea. And so me as a child growing up, like I'm the youngest of 5, so I have 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters, and my 2 older brothers were like super athletic. They're 9 and 10 years older than me. They just were people that I wanted to be because I thought they were so cool, and they lifted when we were kids. And so we had one of those like really old-timey gyms in our house where you have like the bench and like the rusted weights and all of that stuff.
The thin pole and the screw-on collars.
Yeah, we totally had all of that like in my house growing up. And I remember when I was really young, my oldest brother was lifting out on our patio, and he like showed me that he learned some lift. And I remember as a really young kid, I must have been like 5 or 6. I watched him do this lift. And I just remember being like, that was the coolest thing ever. And so ever since I was a little kid, I was like, I want to be involved in this somehow. And so when I went to school, I was like, okay, kinesiology, athletic training, let's declare that. So when I went to Oshkosh, that's what I did. I did a semester of like all of that stuff. And after a semester, I was like, this isn't for me. I was like, I really just don't want to deal with feet all day. And I felt like if your toe moves half a degree, like that doesn't excite me. But because I was an athlete, I had exposure to our strength and conditioning department, part part of my training. And so I met Steve Brown up at Wisconsin Oshkosh, and I was like, this is what I want to be. Like, this is what I want to do. And so I switched my major over, transitions to like our kinesiology with a minor in strength and conditioning. So I started picking up all of the strength and conditioning courses and got to be in the weight room a lot more. And I just loved it. So that's kind of the path that I took.
Did strength and conditioning, was it part of your gymnastics career, or was it something that you went into after you were a gymnast?
So it was, when I was in college, it was part of what we did. So with gymnastics, I think it's a little bit different of a sport in that your sport coach tends to run a lot of your strength and conditioning. Also because the sport of gymnastics is you just moving your body constantly itself. You're always lifting yourself and doing all these things. So it's like, do we need to add extra weights to it? But we did. And so we had our practice times, and then we had our strength and conditioning time with our coach. And that was from the time that I was a freshman into my senior year. So it was part of it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's not something I know nothing about, but I know that other exercise modalities like CrossFit, they're trying to take the stuff from gymnastics into their workouts, you know. That's interesting. But you said it was you didn't really have a strength coach. It was your gymnastics coach who was running the conditioning?
So normally that's what happens is, like in gymnastics, your sport coach tends to be the person that supplements it, because the movements everyone always thinks is so different. And so she did a lot of what we did in the gym, but we actually had the strength and conditioning coach that we would go to do all of our actual lifting with barbells, dumbbells, all of that stuff. But everything we did with her was all body weight in the gym. So it was almost like we were doubling up.
You were.
Our activity.
Would you lift on the days that you did the strength training with the strength coach? Did you do it before or after practice?
We did it super early in the morning, 6 a.m. And
So
then
separate from practice.
Yep. And then
Okay.
practice, depending on the day, either we would start practice at like 12, or we would start at like 3 or 4. So
Okay.
really depended.
So as a strength coach and as a former gymnast,
Yeah.
how important is it for gymnasts to supplement with strength training?
I mean, that's your entire sport. So I feel like if you're not doing it in the gym already, I look back at my strength levels when I was a gymnast and look at where I am now, because I do constantly train. And I think, man, I would have been an amazing gymnast if I had the strength that I had now then. So I think it is a huge part of their development and can be super beneficial to that type of athlete.
Does it need more popularity? I mean, is it something that happens constantly in gymnastics now, where you're having separate strength coaches come in and?
Yeah, so it is becoming more well known, and I don't know that it needs more popularity, but maybe just more education on the benefit of what it is. So, part of my background, like I talked about, is that I was at Kentucky, and Kentucky's gymnastics team has a strength coach that they go to. And I remember when I first got there, was their first year coming into the weight room because they had not utilized it before. I know that Alabama has a strength coach specifically for gymnastics only. So they have one person that they go to, and that's the only team that he handles. So I think it is.
Compared to other sports, has it not been adopted as much as, your typical other sports?
Correct. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with the cultural side of your sport coach was having you do the strength stuff in the gym. So a lot of programs haven't utilized their strength and conditioning department, where I think more you're starting to see the transition into, oh, we actually have a person that's meant to do this. So it doesn't have to be the sport coach anymore that's handling all of that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a couple things. I think, as you said, if you had realized, how strong you are now compared to when you were competing, how much of a better, how better you would have been at gymnastics, but also, I'll use a word that Bo used, how robust you probably would have been, and how it would have, I know strength coaches, I mean, you are going to decrease the potential for injury. I mean, it's just the reality of it. When you're stronger, fitter, healthier, more robust, you are going to decrease the likelihood of injury. Accidents still happen, but at the same point, when you, somebody just posted, strong things don't break. So, you know.
And I think I was a bit of an anomaly in gymnastics in that, like, I've never had surgery. I've never had a major injury.
Please knock on your table.
As a gymnast, because I think I had already had a lot of the athletic part of weight training and things like that ingrained, because my mom was a gymnast, she lifted, my dad was an athlete, he lifted, like it just kind of was in my family. So I think I was already set up in a much better place that, like, the injuries that you're talking about, I was able to avoid because I was already so strong going into the sport. So.
Yeah, you really had no other choice to be strong with the background of the family that you came from. I mean, everybody's an athlete, everybody's lifting weights. It's like you're either going to lift weight or you're going to die because you're the youngest of the family, so you're not going to eat because you can't fight us. And then your brothers are probably scarfing down all the food anyway, being 9 and 10 years older than you. So you had to fight.
I had to. I wanted to fit in.
The other thing, and I have a hard time explaining this to a lot of my friends who are in their 9-to-5 desk jobs and stuff like that. It's like, for coaches in our profession, once you catch that bug of being a coach, it doesn't go away. It's never satisfied. So it's like, and I didn't mean to make the face when you said athletic trainer, but you know, there's always that fun relationship between the strength staff and the athletic trainers, sports medicine, whatever we're calling ourselves nowadays. But, you know, I definitely commend all those individuals that decided to go to the dark side and, you know, keep getting after it.
Yeah, you didn't mean to make that face.
Oh, no, I did. I thought I'd apologize to all my sports medicine and athletic trainers that listen to us, but whatever. That being said, Ryan, for those soccer athletes and the softball athletes that are coming to Clemson, when they come in first day, what can they expect? How's Coach Metzger onboarding them to the Clemson University Athletic Department?
Okay, so like day one, we basically have to lay down the expectations. Literally, like the first day that our athletes come in, they tend to come in the summer, the freshmen, and we have a time specific for the freshmen only. So they're not around the other athletes seeing what they're doing or whatever it may be. It's just time that we're focused on them. And literally our first session is like, here are the rules, here are our core values, here's how you will dress. Like, so there is no gray. Expectations are set from day one. I tend to, when I first meet an athlete, I want to be nice enough that I'm inviting that they'll come talk to me, but not so nice that they think that I'm like a pushover. So I tend to be a bit more stern very early on. And then as I get to be around them a little bit more, then a little bit more my personality will show up. So when they're first here, it is all business. Here, here, here. This is how you lift. This is what I want to see. Nope, do it like this. Nope, like that. Like, so, and then as we start to get to know them, as we start to divide up into our sports, as I'll work with, you know, only the soccer or only the softball, then we can have a bit more dialogue and a bit more fun with everything. But early on, here's what you do, here's what you don't do. Thanks.
Yeah, if we're all wearing purple shirts today, you're not coming in an orange.
Exactly. Yep.
And I think for a lot of young coaches, they need to understand, and I tell this to my kids even, it's a lot easier to go from being, you know, Barney badass, very hard, very disciplined, and then becoming nicer than starting off as nice and trying to be mean. I mean, and I think mean's not the right word. You know, more discipline. It's a lot easier to go from discipline and, you know, this is what is expected and then being nice than trying to go the other way around, because with the 18 to 22-year-old mind, if you start off really nice and then you come in and try and set some rules down, they're going to be like, what's up, Coach Spellman's ass today? Why is he being such a dickhead? And it's like, no, I'm not, that's not it. But these are the expectations. I mean, I would assume at Clemson, the expectations for both sports are to win ACC championships, play in the national tournament, and win national championships. I mean, you can correct me if I'm mistaken on any of those
Yeah,
standards.
like from an athletic performance standpoint, like pure wins and losses, you know, we always want to vie for championships, but as far as like expectations in here, it's more so about how you're conducting yourself and how you're holding yourself and the type of character that you have. So we don't tend to put a premium on stuff like, oh, we got to make to this championship game, or like, oh, we're ranked number 10 in the nation. Like, I try to tell my teams, forget all that. It's noise. And once you get the spotlight on you like that, you have to work just as hard. So our work ethic better be there, and our integrity and our movements better be there. Like, so our stuff is more so about character and how you're holding yourself than about, all right, let's make it to this game. Let's win this game.
Now, do you set that standard, or is that a standard that you sit down with the head coach and go over, and or is it completely separate? I mean, do you try and marry the expectations from the sport coach to the weight room and what you're expecting? Are you trying to echo what the head coach is saying to the athletes and make sure that it's in line with what you're trying to do? Or, I mean, what's kind of the relationship between the head coaches of the sports that you work with and their expectations out of you for what she wants their athletes to do in the weight room?
Sure. So, I mean, a strength coach is very much an extension of the head coach, and very much a bridge between athlete and coach. I don't think people realize how much time strength coaches spend with the athletes versus how much time a sport coach spends with an athlete. And it's not due to, you know, anything beyond rules that are in place for involvement between the teams and stuff. But us as a department, strength and conditioning, we have our own core values and expectations and policies and rules and things like that we hold the athletes to. And then if there's anything beyond that, that a sport coach is really like, this is kind of what we want and what we do, then you can echo those sentiments within that team. But everyone is kind of at a blanketed standard of, this is what we're looking for all of our athletes across the board. And then you can kind of go into some individual stuff and get with your sport coach on stuff. But for me, like, I try to always echo the same sentiments as the sport coach, because you want consistency with your athletes across the board. So like, if I'm saying one thing and the sport coach is saying another, it's confusing. So I always just try to be on the same page with everyone that's involved with that athlete.
Yeah, definitely. With that 18 to 22-year-old brain, too many messages going in muddies the waters very quickly.
Absolutely.
What do you got, Chris?
If you were to build, if there was such a thing as building a perfect athlete, what is their timeline look at? Let's say from the beginning of youth sports through high school and into college. What should they be doing, and how does that timeline evolve?
Yeah, so as far as like their development and sport involvement, I think a lot of people, this has been a hot topic, is like the early sports specialization. Is it good? Is it bad? Does it matter? And you see all of the statistics out there about like, oh, 95% of the Super Bowl winner athletes were all multi-sport athletes growing up. And it's like, yeah, I think that's great. I think when you're very young, you should be very general in what you do and explore other sports, because if you're only in one, then you constantly only get exposure to whatever that sport wants developed, but also you like have no idea as a young kid what you like and what you don't like. So I think it's important to just be very general very early on. As far as like strength training and things like that, there are definitely windows of time that are really, really great for young kids to be involved in that stuff. And I think you can do it if you work with somebody that understands the population. So, I mean, do we need to get super advanced in our training techniques for a 14-year-old? No, I don't think so. But I do think that it's appropriate to have your kid involved in some type of training to some degree, because there's a lot, I think, that you can benefit from it beyond the physical aspect of the gains that you see, there's a lot that can be taught as far as like discipline and work ethic and integrity, the things that we've talked about. So I would say be very, very general, especially early on. Maybe as you transition to like that college, or sorry, that high school, you can start to maybe weed out some stuff, but still kind of be general, but you're in that like intermediate, like I know what I like, and maybe I'm setting myself up for college. Obviously, college is going to be your time period when you're, you know, that one sport athlete. It's very rare that you're going to find multi-sport, which you do here and there, but it's hard to manage. And then you can get a lot more specific in your training outside of your sport as well. And then obviously professional, they're that one sport. So that would kind of be my way to funnel all of that, if that answers that question.
Yeah, I think you brought up an interesting concept, which is if you're going to seek out a strength training coach, find one that, I think you use the word population, that knows your population, which is interesting. So, you know, maybe you're not looking for a collegiate strength coach because they're used to the 18 to 22 plus athlete, which is completely different from someone who's 12, 13, 14 years old. You know, someone who's been in that realm and knows how to adapt to the particular things that that body is going through is going to be better utilized for that athlete.
I think about that a lot, actually, and I get that question from a lot of people, like, you know, would I ever work in a high school setting? Would I ever work in this type of setting? Or I'm like, I don't know what's going on with a 15-year-old. Like, I like my population is this, and so this is where I feel like I work the best and I'm most successful. And do I understand the concepts that could work for someone that age? Yes, but is there potential that I'm like overseeing something or I'm missing something? Yes, because that's not where I specialize. I think it's important, like you said, point that out, have someone that understands the population that you're within.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one of the things that we've been bringing up, I think has been now, this is maybe the third or fourth podcast, you know, because we've talked about it from the beginning, this concept of playing multiple sports as a way to develop a youth athlete. My family and I moved out to California about a year ago from the East Coast, and putting that into practice is so much harder than understanding the theory, especially out here. You know, like on the East Coast, you have the seasons. So the breakup in, you know, the sports are kind of natural. Out here, there's not, you know, so baseball's pretty much all year round, you know, and my son was playing basketball, and to get on the top team was an 11-month commitment, you know, and you know, I'm sitting here, I'm going, oh God, I do a podcast on this stuff and everyone's telling me not to do, you know, one sport for too long. And it's almost impossible. They almost make it impossible out here because, you know, if once you're on a team, like if you're on a baseball team and you fit a certain position, like, you know, they're relying on you. And the basketball team was together for 2 or 3 years, and, you know, they get used to being together as a team. And if you come in as someone new to that, you're not going to get as much playing time. And if you want to get more playing time, then you've got to be on with that squad through everyone. So it's much harder to put that in practice, at least out here, from what I've experienced.
It's very interesting. Like just hearing the struggles of that. I don't have kids, so I don't know how hard that is. So in my head, I'm like, this is perfect.
Yeah, no, theoretically, it's absolutely right. But business is structured in such a way that it doesn't allow that. And it sucks.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So as a gymnast in a sport that is
Interesting,
notorious for youth.
I know where this is going.
Really? It's really not that hard to figure out. So, you know, and I participated in a sport where youth individualization and specialization occurs at a very early age. I was a swimmer and I played soccer, and eventually the soccer coach and I didn't get along, so I went all into swimming. But as you were growing up, were there other activities that you participated in, or did you solely focus on gymnastics?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't really know what my life was like growing up as a gymnast. They've never asked. So
Check for me.
Gymnastics. Yep. Perfect. It was gymnastics ever since I was super young. I did other stuff like with my brothers, like we would go skateboard or we would go like throw the football around or, throw a baseball around. We had a hoop in our driveway. So it's like we played basketball. So I was exposed to these other sports, but it was just for fun. The sport that, took my attention and I was serious about was gymnastics. And when you're very young, gymnastics, like you said, you specialize super early. And I was 10 years old training 24 hours a week. I was there 6 days a week for 4 hours at a time. And then I used to ask if I could go in on Sundays for open gym because I wanted to be there. I didn't want the day off. And I think I was excelling. So it was really exciting for me at the time. But the part that people don't know is that I got very burned out very quickly and I quit going to a gym. I quit watching it. I quit everything for about 5 years or so, 4 years, because I was just so tired of constantly being a gymnast. And I think that's
That happened.
What?
What age did you stop for one?
I was 11. I was 11 years old and I was burned out from doing gymnastics. And I remember the owner of the gym used to call my house constantly asking for me to come back because I would be so good if I came back. My mom said, no, she doesn't want to go. So I
Good for your mom.
Yeah. Because they used to call and be like, we'll give you a discount because gymnastics is so expensive. They're like, we will cut the price down. We want her in this gym. And my mom was like, she doesn't want to go. Like, I'm not going to make her go. So I didn't step foot back into an actual gym. Like I started gymnastics again at the high school level when I was 14, but I didn't step foot into like a gym to seriously train until I was 16. So I think people don't realize that burnout happens so young when you specialize so young. And then it's almost like I had to start over and like re-figure out my love for the sport. And if I had it still.
Well, and the physiological changes that you went from 10 to 16.
Right.
I mean, your body at 16 was not the same as it was at 10.
Right. So there are like a lot of things where I was like, I used to be able to do this when I was, I can't do this anymore. Like, what the heck? And so, people don't know that I had this huge gap in my athletic career for gymnastics because I was so tired of it. The other thing that a lot of people don't know is that I was doing that in high school. I was doing gymnastics, but I also did track. So I kind of like did the opposite. So I started with one sport and started to expand. So I pole vaulted in high school as well. And they wanted me to do track in college. And I was like, no, that's really hard. I'm doing gymnastics too. And now like I transitioned into competing for weightlifting. So it is a singular sport again, but like my coach literally writes on my programs, hey, like do some gymnastic stuff, just go have fun. So as I'm getting older, I'm like getting more general instead of being more sport specific, the opposite of what I just said.
So let me play devil's advocate to this whole idea of multiple sports to both of you. Does the perfect sport exist where you're moving your body through so many different planes that you're almost simulating what multiple sports would do? So something like gymnastics, is that a perfect sport? Or martial arts, are you getting all of those different angles that you would by playing multiple sports?
I'll let you take this.
I was gonna say, I think exposure to that would be great. But diving in 100% and being like, this is where I'm going to get all of my athletic ability, probably not. Because if you ever watch a gymnast run, it's atrocious. Like, probably not. But I think
you mean you're not supposed to move your arms side to side when you run down for the vault?
No. But I do think it is good to like at least dip a toe and have some exposure to that stuff, but probably not 100% because you do get a lot of really, really great qualities, but it's not going to hit every bucket that maybe you want as an athlete.
I mean, my big thing is that I would like my children to do an individual sport and a team sport. I mean, and that has more to do on you know, the individual sport, it's all on them. You want to get better at it, you got to do it more. You got to go train more. You got to become better at that activity. Team sport, you got to play with kids that you might not like. So guess what? You're probably going to have to work with people that you don't like. So it's going to give you a better understanding on how to do that and hopefully be successful.
Yeah, I agree. I can speak for that from 100%. You know, playing basketball through college, I've only played team sports until I started doing martial arts. And I really think it would have been a benefit as an athlete for me to do an individual sport while I was young. But I have a similar story to yours where I had burnout from basketball. And, you know, once I was done, I never turned it on. I didn't want anything to do with it for a long, long time. Yeah. But I was 22. I went that long. It was 22 before that happened.
Wow.
And I think any individual that is solely focused on a certain activity for so long, I mean, you said at 10 you were doing 24 hours a week of training. So for people that don't understand that, in the Division I collegiate setting, maximum hours required for a week is 20, and that's for an 18 to 22-year-old.
But tell them what it includes. That includes everything, right?
Yeah, that's everything.
So that's strength and conditioning. That's your sport. That's
so practice, strength and conditioning, and games. 20 hours. That's it, right?
Yeah, on paper. On paper. Yeah. I mean, I will say the caveat to that is that's what's on paper. So
I was doing more than that as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, and your athletes, your Division I athletes aren't training 20 hours a week. They're doing everything that's associated with their sport 20 hours. You were in the gym training.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I used to get pulled from class or from school early so I could make it to gymnastics on time.
Well, that's not a bad thing for a 10-year-old. I mean, no. Hell yeah. Sign me up.
Yeah, it was great.
I'm about to do that with my 6-year-old tomorrow.
Attaboy.
Yep, and I would be there until about 9 at night, and then that's when I would do my homework and go to bed.
So I think with the two sports, with the gymnastics and swimming, I think you have the highest rate of burnout with any individual sport pretty much on the planet, because they start so young. I mean, when I was in high school, we would have practice in the water at 5, go from 5 to 6:30, 5 to 7, go to school, come back, do some dry land, and then do another 2-hour practice. You know, so, and I'm by no means an Olympic level swimmer, but it was 5 hours a day, you know, 5 days a week. So, you know, in a self-deprivation tank, looking at somebody's feet ahead of you, or looking at a black cross or a black line on the bottom of the pool, explains a lot about me. So to develop an athlete at Clemson, yes. What methodologies are you looking at? Are you individualizing the programs for the certain athletes that you're dealing with, or what would you know? I'm coming in. I'm a freshman. Let's go midfielder. I'm a freshman midfielder for the soccer team. What can I expect?
Better be good. We got a mean girl in the midfield. Let me tell you.
Yeah, well, they gotta run a lot.
They do. So when you first come in, the program that you would follow would be very general, just to start. Everyone's we're going to treat it like you've never touched the weight or done anything ever. And it just allows us the ability to kind of see how you move and also see how you progress through training. And that allows us to make some adjustments. So we usually do like an onboarding process. We call it like ground zero. So it's like 4 weeks roughly of just very basic squatting patterns, hinging patterns, single leg stuff. And then after that, it's really kind of dependent on what your coach's philosophies are and the sport that you're in. So if we've got, you know, a soccer midfielder freshman, you're coming in the summer, I mean, our preseason starts the first week of August. So we don't have a ton of time to develop a lot with that particular individual. Hopefully we got that 4-week block in of training, but you're basically supplementing all of the stuff that they're getting on the field. So when they're in here with me, we're in here about once a week, and I'm just trying to make sure that we're just checking some boxes from a strength standpoint. So we do like bilateral lower body strength movement. So that's like our trap bar stuff. I do an upper body strength movement. My girls love to bench, so I bench them. Yeah, it's great. I love that they love to bench. I do single leg movement, posterior chain work, do some mobility from the hip and the ankle, and really kind of call it a day, because there's not a ton that we can do to develop them, especially with it being a soccer athlete. In the spring, we can do a bit more because I'll see them 3 times a week in the weight room, and then we do supplement with some conditioning stuff, and they enter an 8-hour period to start, not that 20-hour preseason period. So I do have more time with them. So that's when we can start to kind of individualize a bit more, really kind of develop them a bit more. And are we individualizing each person? No, but the way that I run my program is, hey, if you're at this level of this movement, this is the thing that you're doing. If you're at this level of this movement, this is the thing that you're doing. So it's almost like you can bucket the athletes and still kind of cater to their skill level or their strength level, but I'm not sitting here writing 20 different programs. So that's kind of just an overview of how we would do that. And the same goes for any of my other sports. So, I mean, with softball, again, same thing, like we'll just have levels of certain movements. Or the other thing that I do is I'll individualize the weights. So they all have their own specific steps. So if one person on this rack is stronger than this person, like they're not lifting the same weight. We're just lifting the same percentage, but everyone has everything written in. So I try to be as individualized as possible in a team setting.
Is there any point?
For that incoming freshman, do you prefer a blank canvas or someone who's had some experience in the weight room?
I go back and forth on this a lot because it's nice to have someone that has a little bit of a training age, because they're going to catch on a lot quicker, and you can progress them a little bit more. But sometimes it's nice to have the blank canvas because you don't have to break any potentially bad habits. So you get to teach them exactly how you want it to be done or how you think it should be done, instead of them being like, well, this is how I was taught. And I'm like, well, that's not really how we want you to do that. So then you kind of have to backtrack. So I'm torn on that one. I do think the training age is really good, and it's good to have some previous training, but also there's potential, like their habits may not be great. And so then we got to fix that. So I don't know. It depends. A strength coach's favorite answer. It depends.
So someone who has experience but came from a good coach previously and doesn't.
That'll be great.
That's ideal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice when they don't know what they don't know. Sometimes it's hard to come in. Well, my person at home does it this way, and you're like, yeah, I hate to tell you this, that your person at home is wrong.
And I've had that experience before where we've had people that have transferred and things like that. And it's like, it's great that you have this experience, but this is really kind of how I'm wanting you to do this, because this makes more sense for what we're doing. And it's like, I have to constantly queue up and try to break a habit. It's like, well, dang it.
We'll start again. At any point in their career with you, do you give the athletes any autonomy and a little bit more freedom, or is it, this is what's on your sheet, this is what you're doing, and let's get after it?
Absolutely do. I think it's important to allow for some autonomy within your program, because it forces the athlete to make it their own. And I think when you allow some ownership, you allow them the ability to kind of buy in and really enjoy the weight room, and they feel like they have a choice. So kind of like I mentioned, where we talk about levels of movement, if they're not feeling really great one day, they're like, hey, this is really bothering me. I'm like, okay, well then just do this movement instead. Like, it's right on the sheet. That's an option. Or what I'll do on the individual weight sheets is obviously I'll write in all of their warm-up stuff, but sometimes I'll leave their working sets open. So I'm like, if you want to bump up today, like by all means, this block is open. Just bump your numbers and write it in. But if not, don't go below this. And so I'll just give them some guidelines on stuff. And if they're feeling good, like go for it. If not, it's totally fine to be right where you're at. So they do have those options with me.
Are you looking strictly at weight and reps, or have you started using any velocity based training as a protocol, or where are you as far as the development with the programs with the sports?
Yeah, so I do not use velocity-based training right now, at least, because I'm in a little bit of a unique situation with both of my teams. So when I got here was the summer of 2019. So we went right into our fall season with soccer. And then 2020 spring, everything got cut. Obviously, we didn't come back until 2020 of fall again. And then we were back in season. And then the ACC did a split season. So our spring 2021, we were in season. And then we were fall 2022, we were in season. So we've literally like not had this time where I can really build them up. So this is the first spring where I actually have the ability to train them to try to get some strength gains. And so because they've been in season constantly, I'm using some very basic ways to train and do some very general things because I haven't had that exposure in a long time. So I haven't gotten there yet. And then softball. I don't know if you guys are aware, but softball is a new program here at Clemson. So again, when I got here, there were already softball athletes that were here before I got here, but they had not even played a game yet. They had not even started a season. So their first season ever was spring of 2020. And then COVID, and it got cut. We were literally getting ready to hop on the bus to go play a weekend series, and we were told we can't go, and that was it. And then because of that, like they weren't really here for a while, and then I didn't get to see them again until the fall of 2020. And you're dealing with COVID cases and bringing them back from that, and everyone's reaction to COVID is different, so everyone's ramp up and protocol has to be different. And so it's just, I've been in a position where they're a really, really young team, and we just have to get them to the point where we need to be playing games and be healthy. So it's like, again, I'm just being very general with how we're training, and now they're in season right now. So they played last season, 2021, and then this will be technically our third season, but only the second full season that we'll be in. So they're still very young, and general means help a lot with that.
And for most people that are unfamiliar with collegiate softball, they play approximately 60 games in a year.
Yeah, you're looking at 50 plus. I don't think we hit that 60 marker, but definitely 50 plus. And if you're a really good team, a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, then you're
like,
talking the Collegiate World Series and all that stuff.
And this is like a 2-month time span, right? It's a short period to get it done.
It's not short. So we actually started the second, I'm looking at my thing right now, the second week of February. Again, if you're a really good team, you go till June.
Wow.
It's a long season for softball.
It's very long. I mean, and it's every weekend. It's doubleheaders.
Games. It's doubleheaders. And last year, the ACC tried to adapt a little bit because we weren't doing midweek games just to like reduce exposure and travel. So we were doing a Friday night game, a Saturday doubleheader, a Sunday game almost every single weekend.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's like we're not really going to get a lot of strength games in that time period.
Ladies, you can come in on Monday and just lay your head down.
Monday's their day off, so I think they're definitely taking advantage.
with the women's soccer program and basically competing year round, did you find that there was a higher rate of injuries with the young ladies? Because I have a friend who's a soccer coach, and when he told me that they were going to play in the spring and then go back into the fall, I was like, that's not going to go well. Because now you're dealing with competing year round, and you're really not going to give them the summer off because they have to train for their fall season. So like, when is their downtime? And I was really, I'd be very interested to see if the NCAA did something on the injury rate for women's soccer and men's soccer, because I think both of them did a did a spring and a fall season. So I'd be very interested to see the injury rate for those two sports.
Yeah, soccer is definitely interesting in that they decided that spring and fall. The issue is that a lot of your athletes plan their graduation based on ending in the fall. So you did have some injury and things like that. You're already kind of starting at a smaller roster size for the spring. So the potential for injury is obviously higher because they haven't taken a break. And the thing that was nice, though, I will say, is that we weren't playing 2 games a week in the fall and 2 games a week in the spring. If you played that fall and spring, you were doing at most 1 game a week, which was very manageable, but you're constantly in season, which is stressful. So I think we did see some injuries, but when I spoke to team doctors and things like that, they're like, injuries are up across the board for the NCAA right now. So this is not, unfamiliar territory as far as like what we're seeing versus what everyone else is seeing.
Okay, that's interesting. I always love this question. Ryan, you're in charge of the collegiate strength and conditioning coach profession. What needs to change, and how do you change it? What needs to get better? What needs to stay the same? What needs to get the hell out of here?
I think what needs to get better is funding, especially at the lowest or lower levels. It's with the way that the economy works and all of that stuff. Like, I think it's just very hard for young coaches to get their foot in the door because you're expecting them to put in all of this time and energy and everything with zero pay. So I think it would be great to be able to financially support younger coaches, but also I think just the demand that there is for strength coaches, hours, involvement. Like I said, we're constantly around these athletes so much. Being compensated for your time appropriately at all levels, I think would be a great change. I also think just evaluating how you decide to hire people. So don't just hire somebody because you're like, this is my friend Joe. Is Joe the best person though? Like, is that going to make your staff better? Does this person understand the sports you're going to assign them? Do they have good people skills? Like, I think it would be better to take a deeper dive into people's ability to actually fulfill that job rather than this is just who I'm familiar with. I think that
when we were talking with Leanne, I said this, as I develop a staff, I don't need another big, bald, loud guy. I already got one of them. Check. I need somebody to complement me, and the things where I have the holes, I need them to fill in.
Yeah, I do think, and I have a very similar philosophy. I think that you need to hire people that are diverse. And I don't just mean outwardly, I mean skill set and knowledge base and just your process of thinking. Like, some people are very cerebral, some people are very practical. Like, you just need different ends of the spectrum on your staff, and it's important to do that, or else you're going to have some holes. The other thing I would say is just like, I think there's really kind of this old school mentality of these are my training ways and this is what I'm going to do and this is what works and this is what we always do. And things evolve the more we learn about stuff. And, there's so many things out there that can help your athletes. And so just having coaches be more open-minded. Do we need like 50 bells and whistles and then not look at anything that we're looking at to analyze how to train? No, but like just being open to other things than what you've learned growing up, I think would be super helpful for other people.
I think one of the best advices I got at an early age or an early part of my career was, if a coach tells you this is the only way to do it or it's the best way to do it, get away from them very quickly, because they have shut their brain down and are not open to thinking and learning more. So, for young coaches, find as many tools and jam them in your toolbox.
Yeah. And I would say the last kind of thing that I would suggest is just, as a strength and conditioning coach, like, you spend so much time of your day at work. So you want to be in an environment that, like, you want to thrive in. So I would say, just if you're someone that is a leader or in a leadership role, just like being an example from the top down of setting a great culture, because you're going to be spending so much time with these people. Why not make it enjoyable for everyone around? So that would be good too.
Nobody likes going to work going, damn, I got to go to work today.
Not at all. And that's a rough place to be.
Yeah, and it's cancerous, and it spreads very quickly. So, for those young strength coaches coming up, wherever you go, make sure you're not only bringing the juice, but are ecstatic to be there every day.
Yeah, I think people forget how much this field is relationship based and very much service based, and super important to build good relationships, because I can't tell you the number of interns that come through here and still text me and update me about their career. And it's like, if I was a jerk to them, I wouldn't get these little tidbits of their life. But because I wasn't, like, I'm so happy that I get to know about how they're doing. So,
when you're paying it forward.
Yeah.
So, and here's another skill for a lot of strength coaches: being empathetic. That's not one of those ones they teach you in a book. So, what you got, Chris?
Coach, if people want to find you on social media or contact you, how can they do so?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, coach_Metz, METZ. There is a Clemson account as well, if you would like to follow that. So that's Clemson Ollie Strength. It's all one word. So you can find me on either of those.
Awesome.
And don't feel bad if you can't do handstands like she's always doing in her workouts.
I snatched and ran today, so there you go.
Nah, I'm just kidding. When we knew we were going to talk, I was like, she had to be a gymnast. She's doing a handstand walk the whole turf of their facility. I'm like, all right, that's unfair.
I want to see you try that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a shoulder and my nose would be over here. How to headbutt the turf 101.
Exactly. Perfect.
Coach, thanks for coming on today. Appreciate your time. Congratulations on your award, and good luck going forward.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, Ryan, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and everything that you have done and are doing for our profession to move it forward. And I wish you nothing but the best down there at Clemson and anything going forward with your career. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone listening, we are the Athlete Hackers. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Google. My name is Chris Schrade. Mr. Spellman, take us out of here.
All right, my name is Mark Spellman. Once again, I appreciate all you guys, gals, everybody listening to us. And as always, all my best, God bless, and peace.
Peace.